Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me for another iconic comic review. I apologize for the poor image quality here. My camera is on the fritz, my primary camera that is, and probably needs to be replaced. It's about 7 or 8 years old at this point. I'm making do with the default webcam in my computer, but it's kind of grainy and low quality, but it will let me show you a little bit of what I want today, which is Night Terrors. This is, or Noctis Terrors. But Night Terrors is the English translation, and that's what I'm going to say because I'm more confident in pronunciation. This is written by Doug Ernst. It has art by Eric Hanate, and lettering is by Bill Williams. Um, this is another one of the micro installments. I don't know if there's really a better way to put it. This is essentially volume 4.5 of the Soulfinder series. And much like Warcry, it is an extremely short story. So we're not going to have like a huge long review here. What you see there is actually kind of deceptive because this includes both the finished color art and the black and white draft pages that Eric did for the story. And I really like that. It is really fun to see these black and white pages. And it's fun to see a more in-depth look at the art that Eric brings to the table. Eric Hanate, if you're not familiar, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name there, but Eric Hanate is the artist of Arc Athena, which is another iconic comics property. And it's not really my cup of tea, just based on, the back of the book blurbs, but I always found his art very striking and grabbing, and was very excited to see what he could do with the Soulfinder premise, with his very strong draftsmanship and his really bold, very heavy, for lack of a better way to put it, character designs. And it is very interesting to see another look at the Soulfinder franchise from perspective. Now, Night Terrors is a staple-bound book, so we don't have any kind of stitching. It's not hardbound or anything like that. That's pretty appropriate for something that is really just about 16 pages all told. And the paper stock itself is exactly what you would expect of iconic comics. It's a good quality. It feels nice in the hand. It's going to stand up to repeated readings, although probably not dozens and dozens of readings. You can certainly look through it and enjoy it more than once without any issue. Now, Night Terrors is actually, I would say, a very good introductory installment in the series. And what I mean by that is it just sort of gives you the broad strokes and ideas of the Soulfinder series without having to be invested in a ton of lore. It gives you a thumbnail view of the characters, the world, and what the primary conflict is. So page one, really the cover page here, which is, I believe, by Matthew Weldon, as opposed to the rest of the interior art. You see here, maybe that's an alternate cover. I'm not sure what all of these art pieces necessarily represent, but it shows Father Patrick Redder, who's our protagonist, with a body chained to his back. And that is also the beginning of the story. So right away we have a great hook. And all of this is basically a nightmare that Redder is seeing, and it's being sent to him by Blackfire, which is one of the primary demons that the Soulfinders contend against. The Soulfinders in general, and Father Redder in particular. The story, on the whole, is short and sweet. It features Blackfire's temptations, his temptations to fear and to despair, and it features Redder rebuffing those in a number of different ways. He very quickly figures out what's going on, and he rebukes Blackfire using the power of the cross and some prayers from what I assume to be prayers from Catholic tradition and the rite of exorcism, or perhaps just some general purpose prayers in this case, since Redder is not actually possessed in the story. He is simply being tempted, I would say. It's a pretty straightforward story. As you know, you kind of have to be in such a short format. what I really like about it is we see a lot of the things that connect the characters together, even though Redder is the only character who's actually present in this story. We do also see Detective Chua and Father Crane, who are the rest of the core Soulfinder trio, but they appear as visions sent by Blackfire, and they speak in a very atypical way. So we see them speaking as a temptation for Redder to give in to his fears and to despair. And in rebuking them, we learn a lot about how Redder thinks of his friends and comrades, because he does not think of them as weak or helpless or despairing. He thinks of them as very valuable allies to have. And it's really neat to see that perspective. We also see Redder's intelligence and the amount of attention he pays to his allies. He can very quickly pick out all the things that are wrong. One of the things that I like the most is he instantaneously recognizes that Detective Chua is carrying the wrong gun. Blackfire has mixed up sidearms there. He puts a 1911 in Chua's hand, and that is actually Father Crane's weapon. It's a nice bit of world building, and that kind of attention to detail that Redder has for his allies is on display throughout this story. And given that the previous installment, Tunnel Hounds, was a flashback and really only had Father Crane in it, that before he was actually a father, this kind of reestablishes the status quo of the Soulfinder universe, which is actually about Crane, Chua, and Redder himself. So it's kind of nice to have this as almost a palate cleanser in between Tunnel Hounds and the next installment that we have coming, because it keeps us in touch with those core characters. What I really enjoyed about this book, though, and that's not to denigrate anything else, I think this is, as usual, a very good installment here, is I enjoyed the artwork and the visual storytelling on display here. First of all, Eric Kanate is a really great artist, but there are a couple of panels here that just knocked me down. There is this Blackfire appears in this horrifying, monstrous form in the course of the story, and that is really cool. Like, Matt Weldon is a brilliant artist, but some things, like, he doesn't have a really rough edge to a lot of his art. Like, Eric Kanate has this really ragged, raw art style, and he can sell a monster in particular to you in ways that I don't think Weldon quite has down yet. It's even more striking in the black and white. I mean, look at this page in the black and white. That is beautiful. That is an amazing page that just shows you how horrifying this monster is. And, Redder squares up against it. It's really great. And of course, he's going to win that fight, but it's getting to that point that is really interesting. Also, Eric has a really great sense of these frantic panels. That's what I like to think of them as. When they overlap like that, it's like, you are actually in there jostling along with Redder as he goes through these trials. And some people don't like that kind of paneling. It's not, I can kind of see why. It's not like shaky cam in an action movie. Shaky cam actually makes it harder to tell what exactly is going on, whereas jostling panels, I think, if they are done properly, do not make it harder to understand what was going on, but they make you feel like you are more in the moment of what is going on. And I really like that. One other thing that I really appreciated in here is there's some expansion of the visual language of the Soulfinder universe. Soulfinder has always had a very clear kind of visual metaphor for spiritual warfare. We kind of there's a specific tone of blue. We see often a lot of glowing weapons or glowing creatures in that same shade of blue that appear when the spiritual conflicts are going on. But specifically in this one, we see a new element added here, because while the Nightmare Chua is there fighting with Redder, he shoots him, and we actually see like these blue bursts coming out of Redder's back as the bullets hit him. And that is a really great blending of that idea of the spiritual energy and the blue glow that signifies that in a new format. Like usually there's sort of a sense that we have shifted from a physical battle into a spiritual battle when those weapons are brought into play. But here in this nightmare, there is a blending of the physical and spiritual going on. Like the dream world is a liminal place, and we are kind of on the borders between what is physical and what is spiritual there. And by showing us that this visual metaphor blended with, you know, normal physical world this way, we really get a sense that we are on the bleeding edge. We are on the cusp of where spiritual warfare meets physical warfare. It's very fun to see, and I'm not sure if that was Eric's idea or if that was Doug's idea or if they kind of workshopped it back and forth along the way. But it's a really neat visual cue to let us know what's going on, and I hope we see more of it going forward because I think it expands some of the storytelling potential if you kind of have a little bit of bleeding back and forth between these two dimensions of warfare. We'll see what comes of that in the future, but I really, really liked it, and I enjoyed seeing added wrinkle, that expanded depth and possibility of the Soulfinder universe coming to play here. It was a really fun installment. I enjoyed reading it. It is for sale right now on the Iconic Comics website, which I will down below. So go ahead and take a look at that if you've heard anything that interests you. I think this is a good place to jump on because it does give you just that high level idea of tone of the stories and tone of the characters, both protagonist and, in the case of Blackfire, an antagonistic character, in a very, very condensed, easily absorbed, and affordable package. So at this point, you know, when you have a series that is 4 books long, you're looking at an investment of, you know, maybe $80 to $100 to pick up everything in even some of the cheaper formats. Having something that can be very quickly picked up and read to get an idea of basics of everything that's going on, really great. I like Night Terrors for that, and I highly recommend it whether you are a new Soulfinder reader or someone who has followed the series for a long time. Let me know what you think if you've read the comic down in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll talk to you later.